Hey everybody, welcome to One Up to Nerd. My name is Frankie.
And I'm Kevin.
And you're watching our show. Make sure to like, subscribe, and have your notifications on so you know when we post awesome stuff.
Do we say thanks?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Marvel's End Game finally came out. The Avengers End Game.
I'm glad it's over.
I'm very happy it's over. I'm so... I don't know if I could be possibly more satisfied.
Can you see? Can we zoom in on this in
I don't
any
know.
way? You should try to zoom in on your edit.
You know what? The conversation so far, though, I've had quite a few goosebumps. I think it's good so far. But anyways, I honestly, and I was trying to think about this, is I don't think I could be more satisfied with the end of Avengers End Game and how they tied it all together so beautifully. In my opinion, I think it's the greatest achievement in cinematic history.
I mean, isn't that what James Titanic? It passed Titanic on the top grossing film of all time.
Oh, dude, it passed it in like a week and a half.
Yeah,
I mean,
so,
not from just like a financial standpoint, but I think from a logistical, from continuity to just the writing to just how they managed to not fuck it up. You know what I mean? Because in this, I remember thinking back to when the first Avengers came out.
It ended as strong as it began.
I thought it ended stronger.
I mean, it definitely ended stronger than it began, but it at least ended as strong as it began.
For me, it ended stronger than when it began.
Yes, no, I agree, but I'm saying a lot of multi-film properties don't. Like,
oh, right.
You come out with a 1 and then a 2 and then a 3 and it's like, stop, please.
Or maybe like the third one's great and you're like, oh man, I can't wait for the fourth one to finish it, and then it's like, man.
Even Harry Potter was it had its peaks and valleys, sure. But it kind of wavered, right? It wasn't consistently as good as most of the Marvel movies have been. They haven't all been good.
They haven't all been good.
But yeah, it absolutely ended so strong.
Yeah, it really did. What was your favorite part?
I got asked this after seeing the movie, and I didn't really have a great response.
Really?
And I, as much as I loved the culmination of all these different storylines at this moment, and specifically, going into spoilers again, Tony Stark and Captain America, there was a lot of things that had been annoyances to me that continued in this movie, and specifically Ant-Man. Like, I didn't love Paul Rudd's.
I like him.
I like his character.
I love his character.
His moments just feel so forced. Like, he just gets put in because he's like the awkward comedic relief.
He is the awkward one.
I know, but it just...
That's America's ass. Come on,
there
comic
are some
relief
strong,
was so on point.
There were some strong moments there, but like I don't know.
And then when Cap meets Cap and he knocks him over and he's like, I could do this all day. And he's like, yeah, I know. God damn it. My favorite part.
Yeah, what was your favorite part?
My favorite part is when Cap gets Mjolnir. And not only does he use it, I mean, he fucking used it. Like, he's throwing it with the shield, and the shield's coming back, and the hammer's coming back, and he has a moment of absolute brilliance. And I tell you, I cheered in the theater when he gets Mjolnir, and I lost it. I tell you,
if anybody was in the same theater as the guy that was
everybody did. In my theater,
yelling
in my theater, and I love this. I love when you go to the movies and the people are having a good time in the movies, which is, I mean, hard to think about necessarily, but like when people are getting excited about scenes and cheering and clapping, and
that happened. The last time that happened was at Independence Day. Original Independence Day at Cinemapolis. Oh man, the entire theater clapped multiple times and then gave it a standing ovation at the very end.
Standing O? Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I know
I've never experienced anything since.
I know traditionally, at every Star Wars movie I've ever gone to, the whole crowd claps and cheers at the beginning. In every single one. In every single one.
Some people, it tailed off in the last time I went and saw it. It wasn't. It was.
I don't know if everybody cheered in Solo.
Clap. Yeah, it was funny.
But I mean, again, the emotionally for me, that Endgame was just it just checked every box. I laughed, I cheered, I cheered and yelled out loud. I cried, and I can't remember. Maybe it was the last time. Maybe Titanic, when that was so long ago. I couldn't even remember or tell you, but it was being in the theater and hearing people sniffle, and you hearing the person in front of you cry and the person behind you cry, and I'm crying. I mean, I'm bawling.
Wow.
I'm bawling.
Wow.
It was good.
What was so resonant for you that brought you to tears?
To me, it was with Tony, and when Peter's coming up to him, and then when Pepper, she tells him, like, we're gonna be okay, Tony, you can rest now. Oh man, I got chills. That was just so fantastic, and they just did. It was like they just double back. They just twofered. It was like Cap was awesome, and then Iron, and then Tony dies, and you're just like, wow. So
her presence in the movie has or in the series is always been present, right? But like it's really evolved, and I feel less empathetic for her, especially since she's taken on like the sidekick role to some extent, and the whole storyline of Tony like having to put it away and not like wanting to engage from the very start was kind of threw me off. Like I was like, is he really like turning this down and like
he got everything he wanted?
I know, which
so that's why
which was kind of turned me off at the very beginning. And then for him to do that and then be the sole reason that they're able to do it, and kind of like Tony Stark's moment in equivalence to Captain America's moment was the discovering of time travel. Like that was his moment, and that just felt kind of it was a really big moment, but they didn't really. It was more of the plot as opposed to the and then I guess Tony's moment with the gauntlet was also the pinnacle, but that was less about his power and more about his character, which has always been a flaw. So I don't know. There was a lot there for me to unpack.
For me, I kind of am looking at it from starting in Infinity War and having the sort of epic moment that Cap has with Mjolnir. Mm-hmm. That for me is when Tony takes on Thanos sort of like solo on Titan. Yeah. And that's his like epic, because I didn't think he was that awesome in the battle, final battle.
It was kind of lackluster.
But I think for me, you don't forget that what he did in trying to thwart Thanos prior to Endgame, and how jaded he became, when they ultimately failed. And, I like when he's like, we're the Avengers, right? We didn't stop him, like you kind of take a moment there to be like, oh shit, yeah, he's kind of right, And so then it's like his great sort of moment with Thanos at the end of Infinity War, and then him finishing it in Endgame, and it just was fantastic.
Yeah,
I loved it.
I think
it's probably my favorite movie of all time.
My favorite part of that was, and we definitely need to go see it again. I guess there was an interview with the directors, and there's some Easter eggs that people still haven't found.
Oh yeah, there's like some teasing of Namor, who's like Marvel's Aquaman,
which I didn't catch.
Who predates Aquaman. There's a reference to, I think it's Captain Britain. I just saw the headline, but I didn't dive into it or what that was about. But
so Spidey's kill suit was my favorite moment. Like just
it's a kill.
I think he is, that's sort of him coming into his own, and then his follow up movie is sometime soon. I forget when. Far From Home.
I think it's end of June.
And in that movie, it seems like Nick Fury is kind of like, hey, it's time for you to step up. You've got this awesome suit and all these.
You've been to space.
All these capabilities, and it's like, hey, come on. And I think I was also a little disappointed at the way that everybody came back, and like the portals opened and they were on this like grassy, like
you were disappointed by that
moment, them coming back and the fight scene that happened after was
then
cool, but just like the way that it happened was.
And then Wong to Doctor Strange, and he's like,
it was just so
anybody?
Is there
anybody left?
It was so gratuitous that they all come back in mass, and nobody was gone, and the world's back to everything's fine, except for Tony Stark's gone.
Oh, I don't think the world's fine at all. I think we'll find that.
Well,
and we'll. I mean, we even saw this in the Spider-Man trailer. Like one of the first things you hear is the multiverse, and what the events of the snapping happen, and the ripple effects, and that just sets up the next phase of all of this. We're gonna get the 90s X-Men, the real X-Men that we deserve, with freaking Rogue flying around shooting shit out of her hands. A real good Cyclops, man. We're gonna get some great shit. We're gonna get some great shit.
I didn't realize how jaded you were about the X-Men, the current X-Men films.
Yeah. I hate them.
They've been mediocre, but they were the best thing we had for so long.
But
they were the best thing we had for so long.
As they continued to make the Marvel movies in the MCU, and then they kept continuing to make these mediocre X-Men movies
because it wasn't Marvel.
My thought just kept saying to myself, what's the fucking point? Stop. Just stop.
Well, because that was the best thing that there was.
They were just milking a brand.
That was part of their deal. They had to keep making movies every I think it's every 3 years or something like that, so that they
really. Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, there's when these kind of major deals like Marvel selling the rights to these IPs to Fox was hey, you need to keep making them, because as soon as you stop making them, we want it back, or we want the rights returned. So they had to keep making movies, and you saw this with the Spider-Man movies, and that's why they would keep doing reboots, is because if they didn't use it, they would lose it.
Well,
so I'm totally with you. I'm looking forward to a reboot. I liked the Wolverine storyline and the sort of the reset to a younger version of themselves. I thought that was cool.
That's the one character that it will be difficult to replace.
Yeah.
That's the one character, is Hugh Jackman's Wolverine.
So I liked most of the characters of X-Men. I just didn't like necessarily the movies. Patrick Stewart as Professor Xavier. Who else was going to do that at that time?
Well, I remember being at your house when we were kids, when those first two came out.
Yeah.
The first two. The second one with Nightcrawler taken on in the Oval Office. Though, you know what? I will yield to those first two movies, because those set a tone.
It got a little weird afterwards.
Well, it got a little weird.
What was the
Anyways.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll get finally a Phoenix storyline that.
This is the Phoenix storyline.
For the second time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in the 90s X-Men storyline, it's remember there's the aliens, not the aliens. There's a queen, right? And she's on the ship, and she's the one that's shit, the fucking Phoenix is here, and they sort of all group up together to take the Phoenix down.
Yeah.
But you got the X-Men, now you're going to have Deadpool, you're going to have X-Force, you're going to have Fantastic Four. There's so much.
Fantastic Four has been so difficult.
It'll be
that has been way worse than X-Men.
Oh yeah, I'm 100. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
But it's now you can just look forward to enjoying these characters that we didn't like or in their films prior, thought it was mediocre or bad.
I think Marvel has done the content increase. They're releasing movies 2, 3, 4 times a year that are all part of the same universe.
And now they have the Disney Plus IPs that are literally, they were saying, are going to tie into the movies.
Yeah, but the content is varied, right? And I think this is what we talked about with Star Wars, is when Star Wars upped their movies, the characters they picked and the stories that they were telling were not done in the same way that Marvel is doing all of their independent hero films, right?
I 100% agree, and that's frustrating.
But I am also concerned about the increased volume that it will devolve into that. But they've shown they can do it, so I hope they keep making awesome stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're going to compare Game of Thrones to End Game, or can you? Can you
So,
make the
I
comparison?
asked
'Cause
the question because for me, seeing Game of Thrones, and this was, I think, the point I was trying to make earlier, by seeing Game of Thrones first and then Endgame so quickly after, was that for me, Game of Thrones was the more emotional, like, moment. And I think I was more touched by Game of Thrones than I was Endgame. Because by the time Endgame came around, I was just so already, like, exhausted that feeling that movie, I was more thinking about that movie.
That was
than feeling
ballsy.
it.
To literally watch Game of Thrones.
It was at 9:30 on a
Wow.
Sunday. Got done at like 1:30.
More power to you.
But I wanted to do it. I was really excited to see it, and I enjoyed it. But so I don't think we can make a full comparison until the end of.
It's almost like you'd have
Game
to
of
watch.
Thrones.
You'd have to watch episodes 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Or you have to watch the whole season, the whole season, compare and then compare that to, and then watch Infinity War and Endgame, and then make a sort of a comparison.
But it definitely, I enjoyed the Battle of Winterfell more overall than I did Endgame, but they're still like the top two pieces of entertainment that I've seen and experienced in a while.
Right.
And this was
Endgame goes. Endgame is far more reaching for me. As far as what I enjoyed watching more.
Yeah. And
that's just me, though.
I had a thought, because like the amount that I enjoyed both of those pieces of content it made me question if there has been a game that has done, like, I don't know
what they did.
Well, like on a quality bar, on an immersion level, on like an emotional connection level.
Wow.
I know it was insane, and I'm curious. Like, I've had really deep emotional connection to games. Like, I played WoW for, I don't know 10 years almost, and then The Last of Us was a really impactful story. But I'm just curious, like, do any games compare? Like, Knights of the Old Republic was incredible.
Yeah, Knights of the Old Republic is up there.
My experience playing Asheron's Call was up there, but for its time, like, it was technology leading, but not in modern equivalent.
Well, and not even in popularity.
Not at all.
Think.
Not at all.
I mean, you sort of have to.
Nerd culture was still kind of under wraps back then, so that's what I think. What's so cool about what Marvel has done is they've brought nerd culture into the mainstream and comics, and that has created more fans.
Well, I think in games, there's the whole competitive aspect that is not like that.
It's a different experience.
Not that it takes away, but it's a different experience. And so as we're seeing games become popularized from a competitive standpoint, that's part of the discussion, the larger discussion as that you're asking here is sort of what's had that sort of emotional impact.
More from an individual experience.
Sure.
Like, have you ever enjoyed a game as much as you're saying you enjoyed Endgame? And I wanted to ask you this question because I didn't enjoy Endgame as much, but you did. And I don't know that you've had this experience with a game.
Have I enjoyed a game as much as I've enjoyed Endgame? That's a really good question. I would like to think about it and maybe answer it on the next podcast. Can I? Or you want an answer now?
I mean, we're 45 in. You don't have to answer it now. But
damn, we're 45 in?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
You guys are in for a long show.
No. We're going to keep this in an hour. It took us a little while to get started.
I can't think of a game.
Let's talk about it next time.
Yeah, I can't think of a game besides, I don't know, Zelda. I don't know, man.
We're much more complex as adults than we were as kids. So like Zelda, like that was the coolest thing at the time, but that was the coolest thing to kid me as a time.
but Endgame is, I'm enjoying Endgame as an adult. You know what I mean? So you're saying like, so it's hard as an
Frankie as a child
as an adult
was much more simple than Frankie as an adult, right? No, I mean as all your experience and all the things you care about, like you have so much more to draw from.
So so the problem with the question you're asking is there's no baseline.
There's no recency.
There's no baseline. There's like the variability of age changes the answer.
Okay,
you know what I'm saying?
So as an adult,
there's not a game that, in my opinion, that has entertained me as much as Endgame.
Yeah.
No, not even close.
All right.
Not even close.